Welcome everybody today, and just excited to partner. My name is Leona Wetzel, by the way. I'm the president of Three Pyramids, and also I'm the chief opportunity officer at Making Opportunity Count. I'll get to those organizations in a minute, but we're really excited to partner with the Fitchburg Historical Society on this exciting event today, declaring independence then and now. What I'd like to do is just quickly share. Most of you may know, but some may not know. This building is the Adrian L Center for Change. The building was named in honor of Adrian L, who lived in Fitchburg since 1966. He passed away at the age of 73 in 2021. Adrian was a civil rights activist, a community leader, and a visionary. He dedicated his life to champion the causes of racial equity, social justice, and opportunity. He showed courage and worked tirelessly to speak truth to power, to address the injustice that result in systemic and institutional racism. Adrian was instrumental in the establishment of the City of Fitchburg's Human Rights Commission. He served until he passed. As founder and leader and advocate, his impact on communities across Massachusetts will be felt for generations. His legacy lives on through the ongoing work of Three Pyramids and our board members. I don't know if any of them are here today, and all those he inspired. Just quickly, Three Pyramids was a state minority-led community economic development organization since 1971. Our mission is to promote equal opportunity, personal responsibility, and social justice through the social, cultural, political, and economic empowerment of people of color, women, children, and families. This is the home of the Youth Innovation Center. We call it the YIC, which is part of Making Opportunity Count. Making Opportunity Count, we call it MOC, is a nonprofit community action agency since 1966. We're based here in North Central Mass, so we have Fitchburg, Leominster Garden, and 27 surrounding towns, dedicated to empowering individuals and families through growth, development, and self-sufficiency. But again, we're in the home of the YIC. Our youth director is here today, Shayna. This space is for, and Samuel. This space is for young people ages 12 to 14, and they're here to explore technology, arts, leadership, personal growth through hands-on learning and mentorship. Young people build skills, express creativity, and gain confidence in supportive environment. Anyone who'd like a tour at the end, will give you a tour of the space. But we are here today for this event, the declaration. I have to read it because I'll mess it up. Declaring independence then and now. I'm going to turn it over to Susan. I just want to share some real housekeeping really quick. We have 3 restrooms off to my right. Anytime, obviously, and then we have refreshments here. And again, welcome. Thank you. You're welcome.
Hi everyone, I'm Susan Navarre from the Fitchburg Historical Society, and I'm so glad that you're all here, that we're all here together. The thing about the Fitchburg Historical Society is that it's a place to honor and remember all of Fitchburg's history. From almost 300 years ago to yesterday and today and tomorrow. And really all of us are relevant to the Fitchburg story because here we are, this is our home, this is our city. And when we at the Historical Society create programs and exhibitions, what we really want to do is create an opportunity for all of us. Yes, we learn what came before us in history, but also to learn about the stories and the ideas of everyone in Fitchburg. And so this is an opportunity, like all these other programs, for us to share together with our thinking and our ideas and to do some real and deep sharing today. So I thought, well, you always need something to get you revved up. And so what's getting us revved up today is thinking about the Declaration of Independence. And sure, it's partly because the Declaration of Independence is in the news. We're coming up to its 250th anniversary on July 4th. But it's also some incredible writing that's about freedom and democracy. And it's inspired generations before us, and it's still a very important part of our nation's values. And in fact, when I was talking to people about doing this program, and they'd say, well, why not? What are you doing about the Declaration of Independence? And I said, well, there's so many ideas in there that you can find really inspiring. And the example I always used was the one that just inspires me over and over again, which is the line where it says that the rights that we have are inalienable. In other words, they can't be taken away from us. We have those rights because we're human beings, and that it's a right for every human being, according to the Declaration. I find that an extraordinarily inspiring set of marching orders. So I hope this morning that you'll find something like that too in our reading of the Declaration of Independence. You might find some things that you find troubling. We're here to discuss all of those. And so I hope that you'll have some ideas that come up today in our discussion after the event, or maybe you'll carry them away with you, that as we're all celebrating the Declaration of Independence on the 4th of July, we'll really be thinking about what it means to us as citizens, as residents here in Fitchburg. And so I want to give a big thank you, we always did, for all of our performers that are here today. Let me announce them. Cedric Arno, Sally Cragen, Charlie Cruz, Sean Sweeney, myself. Our narrator is Sharon Bernard, and our discussion moderator and host is Leona Wetzel, whom you were just hearing from, the board president of Three Pyramids, Inc. And also, I want to thank Laura DiCaronimo, who is a poet locally, who organized and inspired our poets to write some pieces for this. And she also put on a workshop at the Historical Society where we thought about the meaning of the Declaration of Independence and prepped for this event. And I also want to thank our British brethren, Paul O'Shaughnessy and Kyle Dunbar, who are here to help with putting on this event. One thing I was, part of the idea of poetry, we have such a talented group of poets working in Fitchburg and the area right now. And just yesterday, I was reading an essay, and I ran across something from Robert Penn Warren, who wrote poetry as well as novels and history, and he said, historical sense and poetic sense should not in the end be contradictory. For if poetry is the little myth that we make, history is the big myth that we live and in our living constantly remake. So I thought that was really beautiful. So I want to introduce a local organizer and history supporter, Desiree Dembski-Hamlin. She's the deputy director from Freedom's Way National Heritage Area, who has been part of this project since the very first day. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Welcome. My name is Desiree Dembski-Hamlin. I'm Deputy Director of the Freedom's Way National Heritage Area. And on behalf of Freedom's Way and our partners, the Fitchburg Historical Society, Three Pyramids, Inc., and the Openest mic, I'd like to thank you for joining us today for a performance of Declaring Independence Then and Now. For those not familiar with our organization, Freedom's Way is one of 62 national heritage areas in the United States. Managed in partnership with the National Park Service, national heritage areas are distinct regions of the country that tell uniquely American stories, which speak to the nature, culture, and history of that place. Freedom's Way serves 45 communities in Massachusetts and New Hampshire, and works in partnership with Minuteman National Historical Park as one of the heritage area's key interpretive themes centers on the American Revolution. Declaring Independence Then and Now is a thought-provoking public performance piece that Freedom's Way developed a decade ago in collaboration with the American Antiquarian Society with support from the Massachusetts Society of the Cincinnati. The program reveals how towns in Massachusetts and New Hampshire debated the idea of declaring independence from Great Britain in the spring and summer of 1776. It's then followed by a spirited reading of the Declaration of Independence itself. Each performance is tailored to the community in which it occurs, using a script in which 18th century first-person accounts are presented by citizens or living history performers, while the narrators help explore the meaning of their words. In commemoration of the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, Freedom's Way has collaborated with partners across the heritage area to host 15 performances of Declaring Independence Then and Now in historic and civic spaces such as this through July 12th. Information on additional performances is available on our website, freedomsway.org. And with that, we'll begin.
It is Friday, 27 October, 1775. King George is not happy with the uprising of the people in America. You will listen to excerpts from His Majesty King George III's most glorious speech to both Houses of Parliament.
Thank you for this opportunity to provide an opposing viewpoint. No. You're the pirates. I bring with me a speech by His Majesty to the combined Houses of Parliament. It is not exactly a response to this declaration, having been made slightly in advance of it, but it does capture His Majesty's attitude and the position of government with regards to this late rebellion that has occurred in these benighted colonies. It is a statement of his mind, but also a statement of forbearance and forgiveness, as you shall see. His Majesty is a kind and gentle monarch, and he will send a fully armed battalion to remind you of his love. If they get out of hand, you know what to do. My lords and gentlemen, those who have successfully labored to inflame my people in America by gross misrepresentations and to infuse into their minds a system of opinions repugnant to the true constitution of the colonies and to their subordinate relation to Great Britain, now openly avow their revolt, hostility, and rebellion. They have raised troops, are collecting a naval force, and they have seized the public revenue. They always do that, don't they? Many of these unhappy people may still retain their loyalty, yet the torrent of violence has been strong enough to compel their acquiescence till a sufficient force shall appear to support them. The authors and promoters of this desperate conspiracy have meant only to amuse by vague expressions of attachment to the parent state and protestations of loyalty to me, all the whilst preparing for a general revolt. On our part, the resolutions of Parliament have breathed a spirit of moderation and forbearance. I have acted with the same temper, anxious to prevent the effusion of the blood of my subjects and the calamities which are inseparable from a state of war, still hoping that my people in America would discern the traitorous views of their leaders. To be a subject of Great Britain, with all of its consequences, is to be the freest member of any civil society in the known world. The rebellious war now levied is become more general and is manifestly carried on for the purpose of establishing an independent empire. I need not dwell upon the fatal effects of such a plan. The object is too important, the spirit of the British nation too high, the resources with which God hath blessed her too numerous, to give up so many colonies which she has planted with great industry, nursed with great tenderness, encouraged with many commercial advantages, and protected and defended at much expense of blood and treasure. When the unhappy and deluded multitude, that's you, shall become sensible of their error, I shall be ready to receive the misled with tenderness and mercy. To remove as soon as possible the calamities which they suffer, I shall give authority to grant general or particular pardons and indemnities, and to receive the submission of any province or colony which shall be disposed to return to its allegiance as if such province or colony had never revolted. Given this day in Parliament, George the King. God save His Majesty the King.
Huzzah! Huzzah! Huzzah!
Now, again, if they give you any back talk, you know what to do.
Yes, sir.
Very good. Excellent. Thank you for your patience and your moderation. I do hope you'll all reconsider this course you're on. You know, you're going to be at each other's throats in no time. Thank you.
The Second Continental Congress believed peace with Great Britain would not be forthcoming and began unifying the colonies into a new nation. The Declaration of Independence is revolutionary. It was in 1776, and it remains so today as it boldly professes what is and what could be. The Declaration announced the birth of a nation, one governed by and for the people, in order to secure liberty, equality, and justice for all. For over 200 years, we have been engaged in a struggle to redeem these revolutionary promises. Today, the Declaration remains a remarkable document of what we, as a nation, must continually strive to become. Many played a part in birthing the Declaration. In the spring of '76, when the Continental Congress considered independence from Great Britain, it wanted assurances that each colony would support this risky endeavor. In Massachusetts, John Adams and the legislature put the matter directly to the towns. From the Essex Journal, May 18th, 1776, resolved as the opinion of this House that the inhabitants of each town in this colony ought in full meeting advise whether, if the Honorable Congress should, for the safety of said colonies, declare them independent of the Kingdom of Great Britain, they, the said inhabitants, will solemnly engage with their lives and fortunes to support them in this measure. Across Massachusetts, people gathered in town meetings to debate the question. Each knew the meaning of engaging with their lives and fortunes. If they tried and failed to separate from Britain, they would face the penalties of treason, their property seized, their lives forfeited. The results of their debates and votes survive in many town meeting record books. Some towns simply affirmed their support. Others drafted full-fledged town declarations of independence. And some, like Barnstable and Cape Cod, whose coastline lay exposed to the world's most powerful navy, voted not to seek independence. Let us recover their words.
Ashburnham, June 28th, 1776. Voted, we the inhabitants of the town of Ashburnham in town meeting assembled, being sensible of the disadvantage of having any further connection with the Kingdom of Great Britain, and are willing to break off all connections with them, and it is our resolution that if the Honorable Congress shall declare the colonies independent of the Kingdom of Great Britain, that we, the said inhabitants, will stand by them with our lives and fortunes to support them in the measure.
Fitchburg Town Meeting, July 1st, 1776, voted that if the Honorable Continental Congress should, for the safety of these united colonies, declare them independent of the Kingdom of Great Britain, then we, the inhabitants of the town of Fitchburg, will, with our lives and fortunes, support them in the measure. The people of Fitchburg had already stopped using the words, "in His Majesty's name," to assemble the town meeting. By the time of the town meeting on May 13th, 1776, mention of the king had been replaced with these words: "These are in the name of the government and people of Massachusetts Bay."
30 miles west in the town of Warwick, where the minister preached strenuously against independence, the town voted by yeas and nays. 38 names voted yea. 44 more came within 6 days and voted for independence, making a total of 82 yeas and not one in the negative.
Sudbury Town Meeting, June 10th, 1776. The present unhappy situation of our public affairs by reason of the arbitrary and oppressive measures taken against us in the American colonies by the King and Parliament of Great Britain, and all hopes of an accommodation seems to be finally at an end. We therefore give the strongest assurance that it is not only the unanimous, but the hearty and sincere intentions of your constituents that should the Honorable Continental Congress, for the safety of these colonies, declare them independent of Great Britain, they will, at the risk of their all, support them in the measures.
Acton, June 14th, 1776, at a general town meeting. The subverting of our Constitution, the many injuries and unheard of barbarities which these colonies have received from Great Britain confirms us in the opinion that the present age will be deficient in their duty to God, their posterity, and themselves if they do not establish an American republic. We give them the strongest assurance that if they should declare America to be a free and independent republic, your constituents will support and defend the measure with their lives and fortune.
In Sudbury's and Acton's responses, we see more than mere assent. In asserting their rights and grievances, they were following a model. The British people had a long tradition of respecting lawful authority. If a ruler was to be ousted and a new government instituted, the reasons must be properly declared. The 1689 Declaration of Rights, when the British deposed the Catholic James II and crowned his Protestant daughter Mary and her husband William, was a model for altering or abolishing government. A declaration should include several elements. It should announce an important change in government. It should lay out the people's rights and show how those rights have been violated. It should declare that as a result of these violations, the ruler had broken his contract with the people and abdicated his authority. And finally, it should announce the creation of a new government.
Townsend, town meeting, June 20th, 1776. It is with great regret and anxiety of mind that we find ourselves driven to the sad alternative, either to submit to lawless tyranny and domination or declare independence. From the state from whom we originated and with whom we have been connected ever since we were a people, not only in trade and commerce, but in the strictest bonds of esteem and affection. In this situation, we thought ourselves happy, nor did we wish the connection dissolved until the repeated injuries of Great Britain became intolerable and an accommodation we conceived impractical. The unjust and unconstitutional claims of Great Britain to the colonies without their consent, and to make laws in all cases binding upon the colonies. And the most dutiful and humble petitions of our colonies rejected with scorn and contempt. The cruel and unjust measures pursued by the King of Great Britain and a vindictive administration in sending fleets and armies to enforce those unjust acts and measures by fire and sword in a manner unprecedented. The tragic 19th of April, 1775. The innocent blood since shed, the acts of Parliament declaring the colonies in a state of rebellion, and the unjust and piratical laws of consequence thereupon we conceive have destroyed all hopes of an accommodation with Great Britain, and must, we think, justify these colonies in renouncing all connection with independence upon Great Britain. We therefore declare it is our clear opinion that an American republic be formed, provided the internal government be left to the colony, and we, your constituents, declare ourselves ready at all times. If the Honorable Continental Congress, in whose wisdom and fidelity we confide, shall declare such a form of government, to support the same at the expense of our lives and fortunes.
More than 3/4 of Massachusetts towns drafted statements on independency that spring, almost all of them positive. Crafting, debating, and voting on these statements solidified support in mobilized towns. It primed the people for the Declaration of Independence. When the Continental Congress ultimately declared independence, word traveled fast. By July 14th, an express rider carrying the Declaration reached Worcester, where Isaiah Thomas waylaid him. The activist printer took the document to the steps of the meeting house and proclaimed it to the assembled crowds before allowing the rider to carry on to Boston. This marked the first time those memorable words were heard in Massachusetts. Public celebrations ensued.
Huzzah! From the Massachusetts Spy, Worcester, July 24. On Monday last, a number of patriotic gentlemen of this town assembled on the green near the Liberty Pole, where the bells were set a-ringing and the drums a-beating, after which the Declaration of the Independency of the United States was read to a large and respectable body, who testified their approbation by repeated huzzahs. Huzzah!
Huzzah!
Firing of muskets and cannon, bonfires, and other demonstrations of joy. The Sons of Freedom then repaired to the tavern, where toasts were drunk, including this one: perpetual itching without benefit of scratching to the enemies of America.
In Boston, one of the Sons of Liberty read the Declaration from the old State House balcony to jubilant crowds below. Then the legislature ordered that the document be proclaimed in every village and town.
In council, July 17, 1776, ordered that the Declaration of Independence be printed and a copy sent to the ministers of each parish within the state, and that they be required to read the same to their respective congregations, to deliver it to the clerks of the town, who are hereby required to record the same in their town books, there to remain as a perpetual memorial thereof.
When the people of Massachusetts heard that declaration proclaimed in their towns in July of 1776, they recognized the words as their own, the grievances expressed as trials they had experienced, the liberties asserted as their birthright. Hear that Declaration of Independence now as it was proclaimed 250 years ago. How have its promises been realized? The Declaration of Independence. The Declaration begins by announcing a great change in government. The reasons for this change must be clearly set forth for all, colonists, British, and the world to understand.
In Congress, July 4th, 1776, the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation.
Then, in a most memorable passage, the Declaration asserts the equality and universal right of liberty of all the people and the responsibility of government to ensure these rights.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of those ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundations on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness.
The Declaration professes the colonists' respect for established laws. Those laws, however, have been so repeatedly violated that the people's rights can be preserved only by a change in government.
Prudence, indeed. will dictate that governments long established shall not be changed for light and transient causes. And accordingly, all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been patient sufferance of these colonies, and is such now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former system of government.
The longest portion of the Declaration details the people's grievances, for it is these grievances that justify the overthrow of authority.
I am speaking to everyone in this room, especially the gentleman in the back. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world.
We then hear 29 specific grievances against King, Parliament, and the British people. They begin with actions taken by the King to obstruct, delay, and negate colonial government.
He has refused his assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance, unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be obtained. And when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend to them.
They protest that the King, fearing large legislative bodies, had refused to allocate representatives to the growing frontier, denying settlers their right to a voice in government.
He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people, unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only.
They protest punitive acts by King and Parliament that hampered the meetings and business of colonial legislatures.
He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the rights of the people. He has refused for a long time after such dissolutions to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers, incapable of annihilation, have returned to the people at large for their exercise. The state remaining in the meantime exposed to all of the dangers of invasion from without and convulsions within.
The King had banned settlement of the Ohio River Valley, limiting westward migration of the colonists, and in their minds, the right to secure their subsistence on new lands.
He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migration hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of lands.
The King interfered with American courts of justice.
He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount and payment of their salaries.
The King appointed despised tax collectors and customs agents to police American trade.
He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance.
He sent his army to occupy and intimidate them.
He is kept among us, in times of peace, standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. He is affected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power.
He allowed Parliament to impose laws upon them, though the colonies had no representatives in Parliament.
he has combined with others to subject us to jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation.
Parliament punished their protests with a series of intolerable acts that violated their treasured rights as British citizens.
For quartering large bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by a mock trial, from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of their states, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world, for imposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury, for transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses.
Parliament allowed French law and Catholic religion to persist in Quebec after it became an English colony. The colonists believed this and other acts threatened their prized English constitutional law and Protestant religion.
For abolishing the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies.
Perhaps most grievously, the colonies believed that King and Parliament together conspired to strip them of their prized right of self-government. Constitutions were voided, laws abolished, even town meetings were banned.
For taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our governments, for suspending our own legislators and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever.
By these abuses, the king had abandoned his role as their sovereign protector. He had become their enemy.
He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny, already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages, and totally unworthy the head of a civilized nation.
In that war, they asserted, the king was impressing American sailors into the British Navy and inciting Native Americans to attack the frontiers.
He has constrained our fellow citizens taken captive on the high seas to bear arms against their country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands. He has excited domestic insurrections amongst us and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers, the merciless Indian savages whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions.
The king ignored all their appeals for justice. Therefore, he forfeited his place as ruler and left them a people ungoverned.
In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be a ruler of a free people.
The British people, too, once held in warm brotherly affection, abandoned them to the abuses of king and parliament. In grief, the colonists must separate from their ancestral kin.
Nor have we been wanting in attentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction upon us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our emigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They, too, have been deaf to the voice of justice and of consanguinity. We must, therefore, acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation and hold them, as we hold the rest of mankind, Enemies in war, in peace, friends.
Being then without a governor or government, it is necessary for these colonies to establish a new government with all the powers of governments among the nations of the world.
We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America, in General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and by authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that the United Colonies are and have right to be free and independent states. They are absolved from all allegiances to the British Crown, and that all political connections between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do.
Finally, the people declare that to this new government they pledge their all, including all that will be lost if their cause fails, their lives, their property, and their honor among descendants.
And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor.
These words were proclaimed from pulpits, printed in broadsides, toasted in taverns. They responded to deeply felt grievances. They professed deeply held rights. They inspired men to risk their all to create a new nation, a nation dedicated to liberty and equality.
All right. Give folks a minute to kind of take it all in, let it resonate a little bit. I'm going to share this little phrase before I jump into just some questions, right? So the Declaration of Independence is an extraordinary and treasured document. Some have called it our national scripture, if you would. It is an elegant, powerful statement of our prized beliefs of our nation's purpose. It is inspirational and has been copied by nations and organizations around the world. But, there's a but. The Declaration is a living document. It draws its vitality from each generation's pursuit of liberty and equality. Like the people of Fitchburg 250 years ago, it is up to us today to endorse and redeem the promises of this great document. This document contains a massive promise, liberty and equality and justice for all. I'll let that sink in for a few minutes. For 250 years, we have wrestled with fulfilling the Declaration's promises of liberty, equality, and justice for all. We've contested equality to women, rights of immigrants, equal justice across, is it ensured across all races, across religious creeds? Do we all have equal voice and equal power of representation?
That's a question for y'all.
I wanted to sink in. Because I asked Cedric to help me out here. 250 years later, and we're going to jump in because we want to hear from you all. 250 years later, the battle over what equality actually means is still being fought. In our own neighborhoods, our own schools and institutions, our workplaces, I could go on and on. But the question for us today is why? Why is this promise, right? This massive promise, right? So hard for us to keep. I'm going to end there for a minute. Anyone want to jump in? Anyone want to share their thoughts? Any feedback? No right or wrong answers. I see Bernie, and then I see in the pink.
There were 2 words that Cedric mentioned that caught my attention. Vindictive government. I feel like our government today in this country is vindictive. Mm-hmm. I mean, it is going after certain people all the time. The enemies of the state. The press is the enemies. I mean, it's just on and on the list. And I think it's going to it's going to snowball and really be a problem for this country. It already is a problem, a huge problem.
And this is 250 years later from this same words that were said then. And how much progress have we achieved if we are still looking at those words 250 years later and you are still not coming up with an answer to address or remedy the injustices that were exposed or disposed 250 years ago, and we're running them now. But Pink?
People want to keep their power and their money, unfortunately.
Yes.
I'll come back to that one.
Thank you, Bernie.
There's a protest going on right now in front of City Hall in Fitchburg because of the tyrant, unfortunately, that was elected in our country. And I can kind of feel the fear that perhaps the writers of our Declaration of Independence must have felt against the king. I'm getting the clumps, I can't believe it. Because it's frightening what's happening right now.
Thank you for that.
I think you have to look at the source, right? It's not just the tyrant who's in the office, like what put him there. And I think if you look at if you follow the money back, right? It's what happened with the people who are profiting from current systems, wanting to keep those systems in place. And so they have, it was said that Elon Musk spent $250 million to elect this president, and now he's a trillionaire. So I think it was the Citizens United decision in 2010, which set us down this course of the last 15 years.
I want to jump into that one.
Yes.
The money doesn't vote.
Right.
People vote.
Exactly.
So the money could not, in turn, pull a lever. So something about the people wanted to bring this type of institution to the forefront of America. These people are you, us. What are the demands of the people to keep in this form of government? He was first. He was back there. Yeah.
Oh, Gary.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That at the crux of things is similar to what it was 250 years ago. There is not a unanimity of the people. Never has been. Still doesn't exist. And you're absolutely right. It's the people that put people in power. It's not the money that puts people in power. And so we need to kind of come to grips with what do we do about the fact that we don't have unanimity?
We the people.
Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing.
So I've had two thoughts as this conversation has been going on. One is just, it was mentioned earlier that the Declaration serves sort of as our national scripture in a way, and I think that's a very good way to think of it. And I think that's also illuminating as to why we've struggled so much to deliver on its promises, because just like any other scripture, as it's interpreted through human minds, through human flaws, we can't always see our way clear to what it's supposed to mean in any given circumstance. We're always struggling to live up to it, but even if the ideal is, well, I mean, the Declaration was written by humans too, so it's not perfect either, but even if the ideal is closer to perfect, we're not.
Right.
And so we struggle to figure out how to implement that. Even today, we've come a long way, but even today, speaking of equality and justice, and even putting to one side for just a moment the current administration, there are a lot of people acting in good faith who have differing opinions of what that looks like, what equality looks like, what justice looks like. And sometimes it's very tempting, just like with religious scripture, it's very tempting to look at someone who interprets that national scripture differently than I do, differently than you do, and look at them as opponents rather than as people we need to be talking with and finding common ground with. And I'm not talking about partisan politics or anything. I'm talking about, just having the conversation about how do we get better? How do, my idea might not be your idea, might not be his idea, but if we can agree that we're all trying to row in the same direction, then we can start to figure out how to get there.
Let's start there. Your thing with
My little catch?
Yeah.
Just a little catch. Just a little catch when you went back to our fathers who wrote the Declaration of Independence, just the promise of freedom and equity. And the catch here is some of those who signed that Declaration of Independence own human beings, and that's a fact. And so, we can't ignore that or skip that, so I just wanted to say that.
I was going to say that very thing. As majestic a document as it is, the authors did not agree on some of the principles. John Adams was an ardent abolitionist. Thomas Jefferson owned slaves. And yet he wrote some of the most moving phrases in this. At the same time, Native Americans were not even considered humans.
The savages.
Yeah, savages. And there's so many things that really we're left with that leave questions as to, where their intentions actually were. That humans as property, is anathema now. So we have to, I think, sort of reinvigorate the Declaration in our own lives and try to make it what we think it should be. And we're not all going to agree.
Thank you for that.
I was reading a history about the French Revolution, which was inspired by the American Revolution. And the historian mentioned that there were all of these ideas from the Enlightenment that the nobles of France held, but that they actually completely undermined their own system of government, and they were the cause of the French Revolution. That this was, the idea that every human was equal, was something that was revolutionary and ended up being very violent in France. And similarly, I think that there was this idea that it did make perfect sense here in the States, but then it undermined how people actually lived, and it's continued to take time to play itself out. And so I was also thinking about this, the discussions that we need to have. One thing that this play gives us is that it only tells us about the final results in Fitchburg and Acton and Ashburnham and Townsend and all these other communities, and you realize that they were meeting together over and over again to discuss it. And they had a tradition of meeting together numerous times during the week to discuss ideas about morality that came from their religion. So it just reinforces that they had that existing already, the tradition of conversation together. And so we are sort of rebuilding that tradition of conversing with each other about really important, deep ideas, I think.
And that kind of is a point that continually needs to be made, especially with the people who we elect to office and then they retire. What do we do with them? They are looking for authority and power. They have been in places of power. Bernie touched on this, and Michelle Obama looked at this as well. And the idea of what do we do with these statesmen, these guys that have all of this authority and knowledge and power and esteem? Do we build a board of peace? What do we do with these guys? Because now they are in their 70s and 80s and have been powered structured for 50 years, 40 years, 30 years. How do we get them out of office to change the ideas of the new generation that needs to come forward? I was about to get into my own political thing, but one of the things that some of the people in this country are looking for is a direction of leadership that looks not like somebody they have seen for 50 years. They are looking for somebody that will be here for 50 years. how many of you are going to be looking for somewhere to place these politicians, these operatives, these statesmen that are 70 and 80 years old but have full knowledge, faculties they can do, but we don't need them where they're at.
Well, you also have to remember, after the Declaration was signed and came into play, George Washington, our very first president, wasn't sworn into office 13 years after the Declaration was signed. That's 13 years. He became our president after the Declaration was signed.
So the fight never left.
And continues today. I have a couple more. We have a couple more thoughts to share with you, and well, thoughts for you to take in and feel free to respond. We talk about equality. What does equality mean in a society divided by class and wealth? Does poverty jeopardize liberty? Does liberty imply essential rights to health, education, and welfare? And as Cedric and a few of you already mentioned, when our government falls short of ensuring liberty and equality, what redress? What do we have for our grievances, and how do we exercise that? I know that was a lot, but if anyone wants to jump in or share, what does equality mean in our society today? Because class and wealth, we've heard it already. We've heard it a few times. Does it jeopardize, those living in poverty or others, women, our immigrants?
Just the other night, we watched a movie in Winchendon at the Hub, Americon, which is all about how we have turned the war on poverty into a war on the poor over the last 40 years. So I strongly suggest you check that out. It's called Americon. It's one of the producers is a local person, Rupert Ayer, and I think that is exactly what we've done over the last 40 years. That we have made like the single mothers be the enemy instead of like supporting them in the past, like in the old days back in the Revolution, if a woman had children, the whole community would have taken care of them.
Right.
And I think that's what we need to get back to, that sort of stuff.
Thank you for sharing those points. Absolutely.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, anywhere where there's like a hospital bed that isn't being filled by a sick kid, every house that is not being filled by a person that needs it, every meal that is rotting on a shelf that is not being fed to a hungry person, like, we can't even pretend to have equality until we have empathy. Until you can look at your neighbor with the same care that you look at your beliefs with and say, okay, I hold these dear, I need to hold you as dear as I hold what I think. And to me, it's so disappointing because it's easy to be like, oh, this administration, how things are now. The kids need us now because it's not looking better. Like, things aren't looking kinder or more empathetic or less racist, sexist, homophobic. It's shocking to me, I think, how willing people are to believe that this is a temporary condition of this country instead of the manifestation of how things have always been and how things truly, people did not have a problem until it was a giant festering sore that other countries were laughing at us for.
That's right. Lord, thank you for that. What came to my mind just now was one of Adrian's quotes he would say all the time. It's written at his mural downtown. I'm gonna get it right. We'll try to get it right. But he always talked to our board and to some of us about those who are suffering, those who are in pain, those who are most in pain. They need to be at the table. They need to be part of the conversation. They need to be part of the resolution. That came to mind right there, because there are people still suffering. There are still people insane. Who knows? They are feeling it. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up.
I think that's a very good point, and I think that now, admittedly, I'm gonna let my sort of conservative bona fides show here, but I think that actually highlights for me why, if we want to fix anything, we have to start here. We've tried top-down solutions, and we've seen that not only, from the conservative side, I could say, well, they haven't worked very well, but we could also look at a current situation and say, if we're counting on a top-down solution, that only lasts as long as there's support from the top down. Right. As soon as that changes, we're seeing it in Fitchburg city government. There are a lot of grants, federal grants and things that we've relied on for our budget that are going away. But if we start from home, if we start, not necessarily trying to fix world hunger or national poverty, but look at the person down the street from you who's struggling to pay their mortgage, or look at the person in a poor neighborhood in Fitchburg who needs assistance getting through their day, getting their kids fed into school, and that's where we can make a real difference, and that is resilient. It doesn't rely on someone in Washington being supportive of us.
Right.
Then when we wind up in a situation like this, where there are people in power who just don't care about the conditions on the ground here in Fitchburg, then if we've built up from the ground up rather than from the top down, nothing has to change. We can keep doing what we're doing.
I'll leave that, because when you build from the bottom up, things will change. They have to change. The only thing that it is there to do is to change. Right. The philosophy of the top down is not working. The system doesn't work. The bottom is looking at it like, you're not doing for me. Exactly. I will create the energy, the elevator to push me up. So things will change. It may not change the way we look at change and how change has been identified for others. The change might be another canned good on the shelf, but it may not be a supermarket, which is what we need. But we need variety of something that we have now. So the change will be differently viewed from the bottom up, is what I'm saying. That's why I think that the change is a change.
Thank you for that. Wow. We have Laura coming up shortly with the poem. She's a poet for us, Laura D. Coronimo. She's coming up. I want to end with this, and if anyone has any last thoughts, we're going to let her get the poem out, but it's up to us. It's a shared responsibility. It's up to us, up to all of us, again, to endorse and redeem the promises of this great document. It's up to us. Now, here, today, now. So at this time, I thank all of you guys for sharing and giving your thoughts. And please stick around. But we're going to have Laura come up. She's a poet, and we're looking forward to hearing from her.
Hey friends, my name is Laura. I host the Openest mic. I will do poetry literally any and everywhere. The thing about doing poetry about our country now, with the kind of people who write poetry at poetry events, is sometimes they don't want to share them, especially when there are cameras. So Carolyn is my brave companion today, and we're going to start with Carolyn's poem, and then I have something to share. But I also want to say just thank you very much to the people who did participate in our workshop. And if anybody else would like to ever get together and create any sort of works about any sort of other works, hey, my name is Laura. This is Carolyn Sellers.
So I am more of an essayist than a poet, and so what I've done today is I went to Laura's workshop and thought deeply about the Declaration of Independence, and I really love that, like the three parts, like the why we need to change, the theory, and then what are the facts, and then where we go from here. And I had a great idea. I was going to write this Declaration of Interdependence, because that's what I do in the community. I talk about how we're all related and how the environment is all related, how we are nature. And it turns out that's been done like more than a half a dozen times in the last 50 years. So I decided to kind of like riff off both of those things, kind of write my thoughts about what each of these why reasons, and then I also used some of Thomas Jefferson's words that fit because they fit so well. So, when in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and the nature of God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of humankind
requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that we are all inextricably intertwined, from the mycelium fibers threading under our feet to the vast nebulas visible only through the most powerful telescopes. We are part of each other. All of us here on planet Earth are made of both stardust and dinosaur pee. Because we are all connected and our well-being is centered on each other, now a new set of R's must become part of our learning. Remembering that we are not apart from nature, we are nature. Reimagining what we can do together. Relationship building with each other while respecting life on Earth. Resilience to address problems human systems created with a new reliance on each other. Reciprocity in interpersonal relations and our political and economic systems and our relationship with the planet. Respecting the rights of nature, rejoicing as we create a healthier future together. Such is now the necessity which constrains us to alter the fraudulent pressures on our systems of government. The history of the present corrupt system, centered on the power of moneyed interest, is a history of repeated injuries, all in having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over the people and the planet. To prove this, let the facts be submitted to the candid world. They have refused to follow the laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. They have forbidden to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance, unless suspended in their operation to the assent of the special interests should be obtained. 57 years since the interdependence of planet Earth was first declared at a garbage dump in Berkeley, California. 56 years since the people around the world gathered in celebration of the first Earth Day. 34 years since the world took up the Declaration of Interdependence at the Rio Summit. And now 26 years since the launch of the resulting Earth Charter, we have failed to incorporate this essential agreement and knowledge into long-standing policy. Today, our nation is at a crossroads. We are turning our back on the legislative and regulatory practices of the last century, which provide the guardrails to protect people and the planet. Special interest groups are tearing down the structures of government that have served to protect us, leading to obscene, untaxed profits for the elites. The elites are pitting us against each other, encouraging culture wars and unbridled consumerism, and failing to provide the governing structures that serve we, the people, and the planet. We ignored the COVID-19 wake-up call. Back then we learned that essential workers are not the billionaires in the penthouses and private island retreats. There are healthcare workers, bus drivers, and store clerks. Special interests profiting from the systems currently in place pushed for coming out back to normal. Let's get back to normal quick, people kept saying. But we knew long before COVID that normal was not working for most people. We need to create a new normal, a normal that realizes that if you want to solve a problem, you have to look at the people profiting from the problem, as well as those who are suffering from it. We continue to spread poison without seeming to care that we are poisoning ourselves. Severe floods, hurricanes, and wildfires are frequent reminders that we humans have tipped the scales against our own special interest. We need new equations of care. No wonder the post-COVID world seems unsettled. We keep failing to learn our lessons, to try new ways of being. We need to work hard and do the right things rather than just the easiest thing. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A president and Congress whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Nor have we been wanting attentions to our elected officials. We have warned them from time to time. We've reminded them of the circumstances of our emigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity. They too have turned a deaf
to the voice of justice and consanguinity. We must hold them, as we hold the rest of humankind, responsible for our future. We, therefore, people of the United States, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and in the authority of the good people of this country, solemnly publish and declare. As we celebrate the 250th anniversary of the birth of our nation, the nation that brought the democratic republic political system to the world, it's time to reclaim our rightful place as thought leaders for the future. It's time for us to repair relationships with each other, create community, loudly share our heart's desire about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Honor the teachings that the environment is not just the wilderness, it's everything. It's where we live, work, play, learn, and worship. Use the Sustainable Development Goals to help set the framework and guardrails as we reweave the fabric of our lives together on Earth. Well, there's much to be done. No one has to do everything, and everyone should do something, so we each must pick up a loose thread and get to work, stitching our healthier future together. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of the divine providence, in whatever form we hold dear, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortune, and our sacred honor.
Carolyn's like, I'm an essayist. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. I used to sing for a punk band. This'll be real easy. I call this poem Declaring. That indefinable moment when you and I become we. The Spirit moved us, carried us, led us, and will sustain us, maybe. Blood beats through us, not unified yet through heritage, but when my pulse jumps at the gaze of a stranger, our children will tell theirs about foreign shores they have never seen, saved from tyranny by hope. How optimistic we sounded, still sound, when we consider these truths self-evident, as though separate yet equal can exist, as though struggle leads to generosity, as though your experience doesn't vary based on your education, your melanin, your willingness to fight and to keep fighting. It behooves us to keep declaring our independence from tyranny, expand what the pursuit of happiness could be, respect any and every person living under this shared sky. Cherishing the safety net which we have each fallen into, this permanence of protection, unmoved by these whims of power, this undefinable moment when you and I could become we, the Spirit could move us, it could lead us, it will make me want better and better for me and for you. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for participating. Thank you, Freedom's Way, for creating the core of this program. Please stay and chat with each other and enjoy some refreshments. We're thrilled to see you here. Thank you.